I think one of the biggest problems we have in the modern West when it comes to marriage is that people do not take it as seriously as it's supposed to be. A lot of people treat it like extended dating or an extended relationship. And I think if you want to date someone for an extended period of time or whatever and have a committed relationship or whatever, then that's fine. However, the purpose of marriage is for it to be a permanent institution.
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, as always, I got a real treat for you. We're just going to say Zubie's in the house.
What's up, man? Good to see you.
At Zuby Music on Instagram. You guys probably heard of him. If you haven't, he's, I would say, a rapper, musician, speaker, podcaster, internet sensation, celebrity of sorts. Oxford graduate.
Thank you.
Yep. Just found that out. So let me ask you some questions. Now, again, I'm sure there's people that haven't heard of you that listen to me, and there's probably a bunch that have. But for those that haven't, when you started your rap career, like, was that in the United States? Because I know you grew up in London, no? Or
okay.
UK?
Well, I'm confusing, so let me take it back a little bit. So I am British and Nigerian by birth. I was born in the UK.
Now say your full name.
Zuby Olisebuka Udezwe.
See?
Well, you can call me Zuby.
And most people probably say, I will, thank you.
So my parents are both originally from Nigeria. I'm from an Igbo family. I was born in England. When I was a baby, my parents moved to Saudi Arabia. My parents worked out there.
Now, why?
My dad's a medical doctor.
Okay.
And he got an opportunity to work over there, and he took it.
Sure.
So my parents, myself, and my 4 older siblings, we all went out to this unknown country, and all my earliest memories begin in Saudi Arabia because I went to preschool there. I went to school there until 5th grade, and then actually I went to boarding school from the age of 11. So from the age of 11, I was going to school in the UK, but I still lived in Saudi Arabia. So I was flying back and forth between the two countries multiple times a year. During term time, I was in England. During the vacations, I was back in Saudi Arabia. So I grew up exposed to a lot of different countries and cultures and types of people and ways of doing things, and heavy exposure to foreign particular. So the UK, Nigeria, the USA, because I was in the American school system from kindergarten to 5th grade. It's also why I don't sound British. People get confused by my accent because they hear me talk and they're like, wait, you don't really sound like an Englishman. And it's because I didn't grow up there. And then, of course, Saudi Arabia. I lived there for 20 years. So
do you like that? Where do you like better?
Man, it's an impossible question. I like different places for different reasons. I'm actually going back to the Middle East. I've been nomadic for the past 2 years. I left the UK in 2021.
You going to Dubai?
Yeah, I just became a resident in July.
Yeah, but that's smart. There are tax advantages,
very smart.
Isn't there?
Yes, very.
How do you become a resident?
So I opened a company there. I started a company, and I'm going to be the director of that company. And it's just a paperwork and process, really. It takes like 3-4 weeks.
So you just said that kind of UK-ish.
Yeah.
Paperwork and process.
Yes, process. Yes. I say some things the American way. I say some things the British way. It's fine.
Now, when you were going to Oxford, were you just like, obviously there's all kinds of ladies that go to Oxford, no? Mm-hmm. So were you like, goody two shoes, or were you getting down to business?
I actually had a girlfriend for most of the time.
From Oxford?
No, from the boarding school I went to.
Oh.
So
when you were in school, you didn't get to partake in any of the festivities.
I didn't wild out, man, in any sense of the word. I had a solid girlfriend from when I was 17 to 21. So she was actually German. And we went to the same school for like 2 years, and then after that I was in university and she was back in Germany, but we were still together in that time, and I'm a faithful man.
Are you rapping at this time? I
started rapping when I was 18. I started rapping in my first year of university, just doing it for fun. Just started as a hobby. I've been a hip hop fan since I was maybe 12 or 13. When I went to boarding school, I really got into hip hop, and I wrote my first rhyme just out of boredom. I was traveling from the UK to Nigeria, and I had a layover for a stupid amount of time in Paris, and I was bored. I was by myself. I didn't really have much entertainment, and I just started jotting down some lyrics. And I got good at it pretty quickly. And I released my first album about 10 months after I started rapping. I used to record all my friends. I recorded my first album in my friend's dorm room in university. So if anyone goes on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, and you look up my first album, Commercial Underground, the photo on the album cover was taken in my dorm room, and the whole album was recorded in my friend's dorm room at university. Same goes with my second album.
Now, would they be looking under Zuby Music, or what are they looking
just
under?
Zuby, Z-U-B-Y.
Z-U-B-Y.
Yeah, Z-U-B-Y. It's all my music is out there, old to new.
You know, I could say I'm a rapper.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, how do you say you're a rapper? You just say it, right? Doesn't mean anything unless you freaking rap like you did. That's the difference. But I can say I'm a rapper. Why? Because I wrote some rhymes.
Okay.
And it was back at this camp. I forget. I think it was called Ongo or some shit like this. But I was hired as a camp counselor for a bunch of like 5th, 6th graders. And, you know, we were rapping. You know, you had to keep yourself busy at in the cabin. So we were all writing rap. And so I wrote a rap back then. And it was, you get your rhyme and you get your beat straight off the show called Sesame Street.
Okay. Was that the whole thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
It kept going.
Okay.
I'm tearing you up just like a lion. You better dry up before your fans see you crying.
Hey.
But see, like, you know, I'm going against a 5th grader. And so I'm just writing them real quick. Obviously, I'm not a rapper, but those are my lyrics.
Yeah.
Now, what could you do with those?
You could make a song with those. Get a beat
and then
put it down.
Perform it.
Why not? That's how I started.
You literally just said, "How am I be a rapper?" and started rapping.
Yeah, I started recording acapellas into my phone, just like on the recording app or whatever it was, and I would just had no beats to begin with. I was just write something, rap it, and then I was in Nigeria for like a month. So I was surrounded by family, cousins, my siblings, and so on. And so I was just playing them the stuff I was making. And they were like, oh, you know, that's kind of cool, you know, whatever. And then I got back to university and I would download beats off the internet. This is prior to SoundCloud. There was a website called SoundClick, and producers used to upload their beats on there. So you could just download beats from producers all over the world. And I'd download them, go in my friend's dorm room, write something, and I would just rap it. And I would just share. I was in university, right? So tons of people are around, so you can distribute stuff pretty easily. So that's how I started out. And then eventually, once I'd built up, my first album was just 8 songs. So once I had those songs put together, I sequenced them, actually took and got them mastered so that they would sound more professional. And I just did a run of, this is back in 2006, man. So, you know, I did a run of 50 CDs to begin with, and I sold those 50 CDs in under a week. And so I went back and I took that money. I sold them £5 each. So I made £250. I took that £250 and I made 250 CDs, and I sold those all in a few weeks. And I actually ended up selling over 3,000 copies hand to hand of my first album. So that was when it really jumped from being, okay, this is just like a hobby and something I'm doing for fun, to, hey, people are willing to buy this. I was doing gigs, I was doing performances, and people were coming to see me perform. All of this was just in Oxford at the time. So I built up a little buzz. I built up a little name. BBC Radio Oxford used to play some of my songs when I sent them to them. I even had, I'd harass the DJs in the clubs. You were asking if I'd go out and stuff. Yeah, I'd go out, and I'd go out with my CD, and I'd talk to the DJ and be like, hey man, you know, have a listen to this, because DJs can be playing one song and then they can be listening to another. So I'd literally hand them over the CD and be like, have a listen to this, man. If you like it, you know, you can drop it in your set. And I actually had a couple of the local DJs just, you know, drop one of my tracks. So I remember the first time being in a nightclub, you know, in a busy nightclub, and your friends are around and whatever, and the DJ drops one of your songs. No one knows it's you. So I'm there like, yo, this is my song. And people are kind of looking at you like, oh yeah, like, you know, yeah, it's a good song. And I'm like, no, I made this. I remember literally trying to tell people, like, my song was playing, and I'm like, yo, I made this song. And people are just looking at me like, what's this guy on? Like, what do you mean you made this song? So that's how it all started for me, man. And then I graduated in 2007. I graduated when I was 20. I took a year out and did my music full time for 1 year. I released a second album called The Unknown Celebrity. And then I moved to London. I started working in the corporate world. Not everyone knows this in my story. I worked in the corporate world from 2008 to 2011.
For what?
I was a management consultant. Yeah.
So, why'd you do that?
So I already had the job lined up before I graduated. I already had the job offer. I wasn't yet at a stage with my music where I was like, oh yeah, I can go do this full time. I'd had like a little bit of low level success, but I was like, cool. Give me a year. I'll take the job, but give me 1 year. So I'd spend that 1 year just traveling all over the UK, selling my CDs, right? I used to just go out there, hit the street, travel all over the country. I did this for well over a decade.
Did you drink?
No, I don't drink.
Smoke?
No, I don't smoke.
No drugs, I assume?
No.
Not even hallucinogens?
No.
See, it's the smarties that do hallucinogens too.
There were people in my university who did, but I'm straight edge, man. Like not even, like, I don't even cuss. Not even like I'm sitting there trying to resist it, but just the way I was raised and the person that I am. I just do me.
I always say you got lucky.
I would say I'm lucky in many ways.
You got raised correctly.
I'd say I'm lucky. I like to say I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Well, you got raised correctly.
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of people out there like me, for example. I wasn't raised poorly, but I wasn't raised well either. You know, and it shows in a lot of areas. So when someone comes along and they had great parents and great family and great opportunities and just, you know, they were raised properly.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm super grateful for it.
Not a bunch of people were.
Yeah.
So you should feel grateful.
I'm extraordinarily grateful for it, man. I don't.
Some people wouldn't recognize it.
I've always recognized it. Dude, I even recognized it as a kid.
You know why?
Go ahead.
Because you're fucking raised properly. See, if you weren't raised properly, just if you were raised with privilege, you may not recognize how grateful you should be.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? You're raised properly. That's why.
Yeah. Shout out to my parents and shout out to my siblings and my aunties and my uncles. And I'm from a really big family. There's a lot of us. So
do they all have names like yours?
Equally complex from an American or a British perspective. They're all Igbo names. So they're all names that none of them are English language.
Do you have any family here in America?
Yes. Yeah, I've got family. My immediate family is scattered across 4 different countries. So
where do you mainly like to live most?
So this answer used to be simple. I used to live in the UK. 2021, multiple things pushed me out of the country. And I just
push you out.
Yeah.
An interesting way to say it.
Yeah. I think I would have ended up leaving the UK anyway, but it happened sooner than planned because I felt like my hand was forced. You have to go back to remember what the world was like in spring 2021. We were living through a period of madness with what I call the scamdemic. And
I think everyone calls it that now, don't they?
Yeah, but I was calling it that from the very beginning.
So was I.
That was
by the way.
Yeah, good for you. But
dude, there wasn't very many of us, and I'll tell you, we all got freaking ham boned.
It was, it wasn't the most pleasant and normal time. And so I was seeing what was going on, not just in my country, but around the world. I was seeing what was happening in other Commonwealth countries, like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK was trending in the same direction to these countries. And I was just like, you know what? I would rather get off this ship. It looks like it might sink. I'd rather get off this ship because I have the means to and the ability to and the will to and hope it doesn't sink than stay on and cross my fingers and sort of just see what happens as my fellow countrymen turn against people such as myself. So I bounced. I came to the US. I spent 3 months in the USA. I didn't have a visa at the time, so that was like my limit. And then after the US, I still didn't want to go back to the UK, so I went to Mexico for a while. And from that 2020, I think this is June 2021, since then, I've been living a life of what I call luxury homelessness. I've been living out of suitcases and hotels for the past 2 years and a few months. I will be moving to Dubai. I finally decided on that. But I've been nomadic since that time. I've been nomadic, and it's been awesome. I don't recommend it to everybody. I know most people like to have a home and like to have stability, but for me and for everything that I do, I mean, I have to travel all the time anyway. I was just in four different countries in 1 week. And yeah, go ahead.
Are you able to live here if you wanted?
I can live in the States, yeah.
Yeah. So out of all the kick-ass little spots around the U.S., you're like Dubai.
I almost moved to the USA. My top 3 cities that I was considering were Austin, Dallas, and Nashville, and perhaps maybe Miami. Those were kind of...
Those are some good ones.
If I were to live in the States, those are still probably my top 4. But Dubai just makes more sense for me.
Well,
Some people don't like me saying that, but that's the truth.
It's a more intelligent decision, because of the tax situation. I hear if you're a citizen of Dubai, they don't tax you.
So if you have a company formed in a free zone, so just this year they introduced corporation tax of 9% on profits over $100,000. But if you incorporate in what's called a free zone, corporation tax is still 0%. Personal tax is and always has been 0%, and capital gains tax is 0%.
Yeah, see, like that's why it would make sense to live there. And then I was there right before it got real cool.
Okay.
When it was building.
You know what year were you there?
I don't remember. I'll look after we're done.
Okay.
It's on my phone. If I scroll through my phone, I'll see what year it was. But the Aldeburj or Aldebarrage, what's it called?
Burj Al Arab?
Yeah.
The hotel?
Yeah, the one that looks like the sail ship.
Yeah, the 7-star hotel.
Yeah, I mean, that existed because I was in it. So, but the tower, that big ass tower,
Burj Khalifa,
that was not completely built yet.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit like Vegas.
Yes.
It was just more grandiose and, it's like a bigger, better Vegas.
Yeah.
However, it was a little bit weird because of it's a Muslim country. So like, the I don't know what they call it, the prayers at, certain times would go off on the speakers, and like everything would stop and people would be getting down and praying. To me, that was a little bit awkward, but I liked it. I don't know if I liked it so much I'd live there, but if I could make money, everywhere,
yes,
then I guess I kind of would.
Yeah. That's me.
Not only that, now it's fucking unbelievable from
awesome.
what I hear.
And it keeps getting better. And you have to keep in mind, like I lived in the Middle East for 20 years.
But don't they do some severe shit if you mess around?
Don't mess around. It's the same. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 20 years.
But that's funny. That's funny because I always tell people like, they'll do this. Well, then don't.
Then don't steal, don't rob, don't assault anybody. Like you'll be fine.
Singapore is one of the best, and most clean there is. And Singapore has like zero tolerance with some shit. They're very strict. And that's why it's like that.
I'll be totally honest, Brad. I think that zero tolerance when it comes to things like theft and violent crime is the way forward. Like, I don't even know or think that should be remotely controversial. If you want to go out there and you want to beat, assault, rape, murder, whatever people, that should not be tolerated in any civilized society. The idea that in the UK or in the US or whatever, that these are treated with kid gloves, like these are heinous crimes. These are not things that should be, in terms of what exact punishments could be, that's up for debate. But the idea that, if you want to see an extreme, like look at what's going on in places like San Francisco, right? Where people, you can just go into places. It's basically legal to shoplift. It's basically legal to break into people's cars, right? You've just got drug addicts all over the place. You've got people getting robbed. Like women are not safe walking around the streets. Men are not safe walking around the streets. That's insane.
This used to be a beautiful city.
And this is one of the most expensive cities in one of the wealthiest countries in the entire world. Like people should be I don't even know how those people live with themselves. Like people in San Francisco should feel such a sense of utter shame that their city.
Well, the real ones do.
Yeah, but
it's the ones that are on drugs and that are benefiting from the ridiculous lackadaisical policy.
But they vote for it. They continuously vote for it.
Who?
The residents of San Francisco. They vote for those policies.
Do you believe
yes,
that?
I actually do. Yes,
no,
absolutely.
They do not vote for it.
I talked to them.
They're lying.
They're not. There's the most.
It's like, do you believe that Joe Biden got more votes than anybody in the history of the fucking United States?
If you include the dead people, sure.
Exactly. There was dead people voting.
Yeah, no,
okay,
no.
so it's fraudulent. It's bad. It's not real. And I'll bet you that's the same down in California.
I would strongly disagree with that.
It has to be.
No, but you want to because you're rational.
Who in their normal mind would say we should allow people to shoplift up to
900
a certain amount of money? Like they should every one of those people that agreed should be fired immediately. No questions asked. Like, what? Excuse me?
I agree with you.
Are you a fucking idiot? Get the fuck out of here. Like, you can't steal $1 worth of shit.
I agree with you.
Okay? You can't steal. Like, that's not going away. And if anyone thinks that it should, get those people out of the lawmaking building immediately. And if we're the ones in charge, all the people, well, then everybody listen and pay attention. But
I
you know what?
100%
We're not. Yeah, but Zuby,
agree.
we're not in charge over here in America. They claim to be, but we're not. They're not in charge. We're not in charge. The government, by the way, is the one that's doing whatever it is they want to do. There's country. I mean, I'm sure multiple countries this happens in, but there are huge companies like Pfizer who have criminal charges in the billions and civil charges in the billions, yet they still operate.
Oh, they don't just operate. They tried to force people to consume their product.
Yeah, but they still operate. Like, what kind of fucking idiot? And would sit there and allow that company to operate. Like, in other words, if I'm the lawmakers or I'm on those committees, I wouldn't be like, okay, you owe 2.2 billion, and then keep going and don't do that again, friend. Yeah. I'd say, listen, you violated the trust of the American people or whoever I'm speaking for. Yeah. You violated our trust. Your license is revoked. We're taking all of your money and we're giving it to the families that were hurt by you, and you are out of business. It's over. Yeah. Now, if they go, well, those guys could just go open up another company under another name and we wouldn't know and yada, yada. That's another story. I'll try to figure out that loophole when I find it. But for now, you're definitely not going to continue to do business. And that's what they do over here. Like, who's running shit? It's obviously not people with common sense.
It's a fantastic question.
Term limits.
But the thing is, if that's what people really believe to be the truth, then a lot of the criticisms that are levied at other countries become invalid if people think that it's the same situation.
Well, don't you think it is?
To some extent.
Like, why do you think Dubai is so safe?
Because they don't tolerate crime.
The severity of the punishment.
Because it's not even that simple. Because there's places that have,
and it's also tradition and how you were raised and respect and the rest of it.
It's a lot of things. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the Gulf countries. So when I say that, I mean Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain, UAE. The reason why some people think that it's simply that they have strict punishments, which is the reason why they're so safe and there's such little crime. It's one factor of many. One, if you want to talk about somewhere like the UAE, is you can't even live there unless you have a job or run a business, right? So there you can't like go, hey, I want to be a criminal, let me go to UAE. Like, no, you can't do that. Like, you've got to be doing something productive and beneficial for society and for the economy for you to even be there. You see what I mean? So you don't have like thousands or millions of people who are just like bumming
nothing
around
to do.
Yeah.
No means.
Yeah. Predating on other people. Another massive factor is the religious and cultural factors. These are God-fearing countries, right? Regardless of what someone may think about Islam or whatever, people believe what they believe. And with that comes a strong sense of morality and ethics and duty towards one another. Of course, you have got the criminal penalties, which are a massive deterrent. You also have very, very strong familial bonds and structures, right? So in some of these countries, if they were to go to like an LA, or they were to go to an SF, or they were to go to Portland and just see the sheer human deprivation, the amount of homeless people and whatever, they would be confused by it. They'd be like, where's your dad? Where's your mom? Where are your sisters and brothers? Where are your friends? Like, how are you out here on the street living in a tent? Like, this is the United States. For like, there's clearly money in this place. Where's your social system? Like, where's your network? So there's many countries where, you can go to poor places where, people might even be poor, but they still have a sense of dignity and hope, because they've still got those familial bonds. They've got their belief in God. They've got their traditions. They've got their culture. They're not so far removed from all these things. So the economic piece might be missing. They might not be financially well off, but you don't get that sort of sense of despair in many poorer many places in the world, because the thing that's missing there is money. It's not just money and like everything else that's missing. So those are things that people don't always consider. And, I often tell people, like, there's no perfect place. Everything is trade-offs. There's trade-offs, right? If you're going to live in Saudi Arabia or you're going to live in UAE, there's certain trade-offs. And depending on who you are and what's important to you, some people might be like, oh no, absolutely, I do not want to, there's plenty of people who you're better off in LA than you are in Dubai. But there's plenty of people where you'd be much better off and happier in Dubai than you are in LA. I just use that as one example. So
I'm weird though, because like when I was in Dubai and I went to all the places I went, when I get back home to United States of America, it just feels better.
And that's fair.
I'm almost like, yeah. It's like, Mexico's cool. I could stay 30 days in Mexico, but eventually, like, I need to get fucking home. And so I would think it'd be the same thing in Dubai. Like, if I move there, like, permanently, like, that's my life now, it would just be awkward to me because it's over there and not here.
Yeah. And this is where you were born and raised and from.
Yeah.
So I'm different from most people because people always ask me, like, where are you from? What's your hometown? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even, where am I from?
Dude, you're able to say where the wind begins.
England, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria. Like, but dude, I spend more time in the USA than I do in the UK now. Like, I don't.
But if you have no answer, technically, you could literally say where the wind begins and then say your name again. And it'll sound like fucking, you're some sort of fucking.
Sounds like a line from The Lion King.
Yeah, like, where are you from? From where the wind begins. Where does the wind begin? I don't. Well, I know where the cradle of man is. You know where that is?
Africa, people say.
That's right. Yeah. Humankind. The cradle of humankind. I sat by a sign that said, you're standing at the cradle of humankind.
And where was that?
In Africa.
Which part?
I think it was like somewhere in and around Johannesburg.
Oh, okay. I'm going to Johannesburg again in November, actually. I went there for the first time in...
That's dangerous now. But yeah, when I was there, I had signs in the hotel that said, do not leave the property with jewelry. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, no, it's dangerous. But like, we had fun and it wasn't really dangerous. But that's like saying coming to Vegas and saying it's dangerous just because certain parts of Vegas are a little bit dangerous. Okay, well, stay out of those certain fucking parts. But I hear Johannesburg now is like, it's dangerous everywhere. Why would you go there?
I'm speaking there. I'm speaking there in November. I'll probably do an event in Cape Town as well. I went to both cities.
Cape Town, I hear, is great.
Yeah, I was there in March.
Is it unbelievable there?
I liked it. I wouldn't go as far as saying it was unbelievable.
Would you rather live there or LA?
I'd rather live in Cape Town than LA.
See, now we're talking now. See again, a lot of these arrogant Americans, like America's the best place on earth. I agree that because when I come home, man, I don't know why, but I like it. I like it in America better than anywhere. Good. Permanently, I don't like it better. Like right now, I'd rather be on Lake Como.
Yes.
Like I'd love to be in fucking Italy right now. And by the way, I'd like to pop in and out and like be a, what do you call it, dual resident. But at the end of the day, when I get back into America for some reason,
dude, that's cool. But you know what? Do you know what I really appreciate about you saying that though is there a big difference between you and statistically actually most Americans is that you have that perspective because you've been outside it and you've had those experiences. So when you say that you feel that way and you have that sense of gratitude, I like the fact that is coming from. It's coming from a broad experience. If someone has born and raised in the USA and they've never left it and whatever, then, it's cool to say, hey, USA is number one, we're the best or whatever. But I'm like, you've never been anywhere, bro. Like, what are you even comparing to?
That's foolishness.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of like a blind patriotism.
Yeah.
It's not a patriotism and an appreciation that's based on, oh, hey, actually, look, I've traveled to these different places. I've been to different countries, different continents, whatever. And I can tell you, like, I can say, even coming from the UK, I can tell you many things about the USA that are much better than they are in the UK. I can also tell you things that are much better in the UK than they are in the US.
Food wouldn't be one of them.
Do you know what's interesting? Is the quality of food in terms of the ingredients in the UK is better.
I would say as far as ingredients, yes. Because America's messing up our food.
Exactly.
But other than that, like the food tastes way better here than it does there.
I agree.
I couldn't find a fucking meal. I was only there 2 days, but like I went to multiple restaurants thinking, man, I can't wait to taste something. And everything looked gray and it tasted gray.
There's some
I even had fish and chips, which by the way, were damn good, but it came with like, instead of like, French fries and ketchup, it was always gravy.
Oh, gravy. Yeah.
What the fuck was with gravy?
Yeah. Especially if you're in the north of England. In London, I'm surprised you got that, but in the north they have chips and gravy. That's a northern thing.
Now, I think it's because you didn't get raised here. You lived all over. You got a little taste of everything. You realize that, like, there's probably some better options out there. And there probably is, but I would just feel weird living in Dubai permanently.
Dude. And the thing is, I'm still going to be traveling a ton. To maintain residency there, you need to be there 1 day every 6 months.
Is that it?
Yes.
So I can move to Dubai.
It's like a no-brainer to me.
If I go start a company there, does it have to be profitable? Like, what's the real rules?
Does it have to be profitable? I mean, you can just incorporate. But the thing is, you're American, so you've got one of the only governments that taxes you based on your citizenship. Which
means what?
Which means that no matter where in the world you live, the IRS is on you. That's why. That's actually why.
No, that's not true. If I move my ass to Puerto Rico,
Puerto Rico is the one spot for Americans that you can get.
Also, if I move my ass to Dubai, dude, Americans ain't gonna come grab me if I'm in Dubai making money.
In the U.S. The U.S. has citizenship based taxation, which most countries don't. Yeah,
that means I'm gonna get taxed no matter where I go.
Yes, that's why some Americans give up their passports. I'm sure you've heard of like entrepreneurs who move overseas and they give up their American citizenship because they don't want to keep getting taxed.
Well, dude, listen, to me, I honestly believe that my goal would be to be the number one taxpayer in the United States.
Go for it, man.
I wish I paid more taxes than anyone else in the whole world, because that would mean I was doing better.
I know. Go for it, man.
But at the end of the day, just like anybody else, there's ways to get around paying taxes legally. So, you don't pay, as soon as you start making a bunch of money, you don't pay a bunch of taxes anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, there's depending on where someone's from, their situation, like, I don't know. Cause I travel so much, I get a lot of people. One of the questions I get asked the most is like, what's your favorite place? Whether it's a city or a country, or like, what was it? People ask me, well, what's the best place? I don't have one.
You don't have one?
There's not an answer to that, man. Like, how can I
asked Ty Lopez? You familiar with Ty?
Yeah. I
asked Ty the other day because he's all over the place too. He said Sweden and Norway were like two of his favorite.
Interesting. I haven't been to either. I've been to Iceland and Denmark in Scandinavia.
No, I think he said Iceland too. How was that?
That's boring.
Well, everyone has their flavors.
There's only 300,000 people in the whole country, man.
Really?
Yeah, it's tiny. Like you've got multiple times as many followers as like the whole nation's population. Iceland was, it's cool, worth visiting, but it's too small and too homogenous to be.
Are your parents still alive?
Absolutely.
So where do they live?
My parents live in the UK.
So do you go over there for like holidays? And
I'm actually going to go see them next week.
And when you guys are all there, do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got 4 siblings.
Are they there?
No, as I said, we're scattered across 4 countries.
Do they all come at the same time?
Last time I actually saw almost everybody was when I was in Dubai 2 months ago.
You guys tell each other you love them?
I don't put down the phone. I don't end a conversation with any family member without saying I love you.
Really? Do they say it back?
Absolutely.
See,
we see who can get to it first.
See, but you grow up without that, and people think, oh, but in reality, dude, isn't that normal? I don't hear a lot of people doing that.
Normal is so everyone thinks their situation is normal. Everyone thinks their situation is normal, and I think most people know people who are like them and grow up with the people who are like them. There's exceptions to that, but depending on where you are, what community you grow up in, people will tend to have, their parents' situation is a certain way, and it'll often be the case that their friends' parents' situations are a similar way, and so on and so forth. So it's very interesting how that shapes people, and it's interesting where those people kind of end up decades down the line, because as I'm sure you've seen, right, you have people who they use that situation and surroundings and the hurdles and the problems and the mistakes and whatever, and they use that as like a rocket fuel to become incredibly successful and level-headed, and the way they treat other people. There's other people who will have there's people who will have the exact same background that you've had, and they will use that as an excuse to completely adopt the victim mentality, be nasty towards other people, blame everyone else for their problems, never achieve, never succeed, whatever. And they'll say, oh, it's because my dad kicked me out when I was 16. It's because this happened. It's because this. Like, they use the same I find that very interesting. There's people who are from very, I mean, look, I went to an expensive boarding school. I went to Oxford University. I met some complete degenerates from all the same privileges that I have, or seemingly so, you know, cool. They're from this, they've come from money, they come from this, and they just squander it completely. They just go out and they don't appreciate it. They don't have that gratitude. They're not level-headed.
They weren't raised right. They were just raised rich.
There you go. So on paper, it can look like, oh, okay, like this person's kind of got what they need to become successful in whatever sense. And this is how you know so many things come down to, things really do come down to personal choices and taking accountability for your actions and going, okay, look, this is the situation, but this is what I'm going to do about it. These are the cards I was dealt. This is how I'm going to play them. This is what I'm going to do about it. And I sometimes get frustrated in certain conversations or when I see certain things on social media, especially on X, which used to be Twitter, because you see this thing where people often, I don't know how much you've encountered this, but sometimes people want to tear down or play down other people's successes based on whatever they can do. Do you see what I mean? So someone might see you and what you're doing and see your success, and they'll go, oh, well, it was easy for him because he's a straight white man, right? Oh, if he'd been this or if he'd been this or whatever, like they don't care about your background. They don't care about your history, your challenges, anything. It's just like, oh, well, I can dismiss off this one. If it's with me, you know, there'll be one black guy who's not successful and they'll be like, oh, well, it's because of racism and it's because of this and it's because of this and this. And, you know, they'll make it a whole racial thing. And then if you have a black guy who is successful, it's like, oh, well, you're privileged, you know, so this one's oppressed. This one is privileged. Like, rather than just acknowledging like, look, people come from different situations for sure. And that impacts them in all sorts of ways. But as an adult, especially over the course of decades, I'm a firm believer, especially if you're in a country like the USA or the UK, somewhere where there's plenty of opportunity. If you're 50 years old, if you're 40 years old and you're still just being a bum, right? Like, I'm like, bro, that's on you. Like that's on you. You can't be a 50-year-old man talking about, oh, well, this thing happened when I was 8 years old. And that's the reason why, you know, for the next 42 years, I was treating myself and other people badly and failing and flopping and everything. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's kind of lame. I don't like it when people try to play down other people's, I believe in celebrating people's achievements and successes and and perhaps most importantly, trying to learn from that, trying to learn from their perspective, and see what they've done instead of just trying to immediately think of some excuse why they've succeeded and you haven't, and being like, oh, okay, this is possible. I can learn this from this person, learn this from that person. And I don't know, some people just have this strange victim loserment mindset where they don't do that. And then they complain that they're not successful. And it's like, well, look at your mindset. As you said, mindset, habits, and
mindset, skill set, habits.
Yeah. It's like, well, if that's your mindset, of course you're not going to be successful.
Okay. So let's go back. You're rapping, You're going to Oxford. At some point you started a podcast because you got a little podcast that you had freaking Elon Musk on.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how you did that, but teach me because I want Elon on this one.
Yeah.
But that podcast, by the way, where do they go listen to podcasts?
Yeah, sure. It's on all platforms. Real Talk with Zuby. So you can listen on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you want to listen. Just search Zuby or Real Talk.
Elon wasn't your first one. You have how many episodes?
No, Elon was episode 263.
Yeah, so you've had a lot.
Yeah, 263.
Yeah, guys, go listen. He's got some good guests. Do you talk a lot about this type of stuff, or what's your podcast mainly on?
I just like to have fascinating conversations with fascinating people. It's really that simple. There's not a rule to it beyond that. If I see someone out there or I'm connected to someone and they're interesting, they've got a story, they've got an interesting perspective on whatever subject or subjects it is, and I'm just like, hey, that's someone I want to talk to. First, I think maybe I first came across your stuff maybe about 2 years ago, and I was like, I want to talk to this guy. I like what this guy's saying. I want to have a conversation, and I know we'd have an interesting conversation.
I almost want someone that doesn't like what I have to say.
Yeah.
to interview me. Why? Because I want to debate, like, why shouldn't everybody think like me?
Well,
I think so.
I also was like, I don't agree with everything you say.
What don't you agree with that I've said?
I heard a podcast you did in 2021 where you were talking about, you said you were talking about marriage and divorce.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact wording. You said that you believe in divorce.
I don't believe in it. I believe
okay.
It might have been about children, because I believe it's better to be divorced in two happy homes than married in one unhappy home.
Sure.
I think it's better to be divorced in two happy homes for kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what I believe. I mean, again, that's what I believe.
Yeah. So
why don't you believe that?
Sure thing. Okay. That's a good conversation. So firstly, I view marriage as a religious institution more than a state and governmental one. And I don't think people should. I think one of the biggest problems we have in the modern West when it comes to marriage is that people do not take it as seriously as it's supposed to be. A lot of people treat it like extended dating or an extended relationship. And I think if you want to date someone for an extended period of time or whatever and have a committed relationship or whatever, then that's fine. However, the purpose of marriage is for it to be a permanent institution. So if people are entering it under the guise of, okay, well, if I'm not happy or you're not happy or whatever, we're not talking about like some fundamental, massively catastrophic thing that has
just unhappy
gone wrong, right? You're just unhappy. Then I think that massively undermines and defeats the whole purpose of the institution to begin with. And I don't know why someone would.
So what would you do in that case?
What specific case?
How if you are unhappy, so now it's undermining everything, what do you do about it?
So firstly, I don't think someone should enter into it unless
but it's too late. You can't. Okay. They already did.
Yeah, sort it out.
So now they're unhappy. What do you do?
Fix it. Sort it out.
Period.
So
if you're fighting and screaming and your kids are watching you fight and scream and like literally.
What are you fighting and screaming about?
Again, irrelevant. I don't know, the fucking anything. Money, you cheated. There's a billion things they fight over. My question is, they are fighting though. They're no longer getting along. You're saying that you think that they should just, you made a commitment, stick in it, no matter what happens, stick in it. And even if the kids get fucked up by it.
Well, I think it's a false dichotomy being painted.
Well, I'm just saying, that's what happens.
No, because it's suggesting that this is not. People say irreconcilable differences. What's an irreconcilable difference?
Aren't you being a little bit idealic? Like,
yes, and intentionally.
Yeah, but like, dude, that's not realistic. Like, I would love it if I could go talk to everybody back into being happy
let's ask
and simple with each other.
Let's ask a question. Why is it that in many countries the divorce rate is under 5%, and in the U.S. it's as high as
in what countries?
India, 5%. I think it's 4%.
I have no idea.
And that's a country of 1 billion people. Like,
again, I have no idea because they honor marriage more. I don't know.
Okay.
Does that mean there's less unhappy people?
The vast majority of human history.
Does that mean there's less unhappy people just because there's less marriage, divorces?
I don't know the statistics, but I wouldn't actually be surprised if Indians were happier than Americans despite having far less money.
It may be. I've never been there.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Not yet.
Well, I don't know the answer. What's the answer? And what's that got to do with what I'm saying?
So,
because dude, I'm talking about the welfare of children.
Yeah, so am I.
If you had 3 kids and you and your wife were fighting nonstop, and I don't care why, it doesn't matter that you're being the dick here. You should be listening to her. Whatever I
would say for the sake of those children, for the sake of what you have actually committed to and the promise you've made to God, you have to make it work.
You should, and you stop, and you should. But if we had a crystal ball and you knew that for the next 30 years this is going to continue, these kids are going to get literally ruined, and in 30 years and one day that man's going to slit her throat and then shoot himself in the head. The kids are ruined. Or I got a better idea. How about you guys separate?
Those are not the only 2 options.
But out of those 2 options, which would you pick?
Well, I don't think it's a realistic scenario.
You'd pick that they get divorced if you're telling the truth.
But it's not a realistic scenario.
What you're saying is this doesn't have to be that drastic.
I'm saying this is an extreme false. That's an extreme false dichotomy being painted.
That's all I'm saying is not to be extreme. That's why I say what I say, though.
And
I say it's better to be divorced in a happy house than married in an unhappy house.
Okay, so
and I don't get into the details, because if you got into the details, I'd say, well, no, I agree with you. It's better to be stay married.
I think the details matter, because otherwise there is no purpose in marriage. There's literally no point in it.
What is the purpose of marriage?
The purpose of marriage is to create a covenant between a man and a woman, God and their families.
Okay, then how's the state
unite them? I don't think the state needs to be involved in marriage, but it is, and it has been for a long time.
Okay, so see, we agree on this.
So we agree on that part, absolutely.
Dude, we probably, I bet you if we had a longer discussion, we'd agree on the divorce thing too, but most people don't hear the context, because I agree with you. You should stick with it. You should try everything, but it's not, I don't believe your marriage is so holy that you need to ruin your children over it. I would say, listen, we already fall short. You're not going to now pick the marriage to stand on. So like that'd be the guy saying you can't get unmarried because you made a deal to God, but they're cheating on their wife too. Like, dude, you're cheating on your wife.
Even from a religious perspective, infidelity is one of the few valid reasons for a divorce. Okay.
But I'm just saying, if you're doing all these things anyway, you can't say marriage is the one thing.
And let me add something here, right? Okay. The divorce rate in this wonderful country is as high as people have different estimates.
And you want to know what's crazy? 60% end in divorce and the other 40% end in death.
As it's supposed to. It's supposed to end in death. Everything.
So it's not a good deal
everything
at all.
Ends in death. Yeah, I mean, look, if someone, I totally understand the do not get married perspective. What I'm saying is, if you are going to do it, then I do not see any reason, purpose, or incentive from anyone's perspective, let alone the children's, to do this if you are not committed to doing this for life. You're also telling a lie, because people stand at the altar and say vows, say till death do us apart, for sickness and health, for richer or poor, or whatever. No, not everybody does lie.
Not everybody lies?
No.
Who doesn't?
No, not everybody lies.
Who doesn't lie?
I don't lie.
You've never lied?
I don't lie.
You've never lied.
I can't say I've never lied in my entire life, but I don't lie.
You mean you don't lie anymore? And you won't lie until you do?
Man, I don't lie. Not everybody lies. That's not correct.
I would argue with you that I don't lie either, but I wouldn't actually say that.
It doesn't mean you're always saying you don't lie. Doesn't mean you're always correct. But you can. There are people who do not lie.
But like I've bullshitted some things and some people.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Because I mean, like, I don't want to hurt feelings, or you know, everybody's having a dick measuring contest. Like, how much you make last year? 100 million. Then they look, oh, it's 92.4, fuck you. That's 100 million. But, I bet you if we laid it all out on the table and looked at everything, you would agree with what I'm saying, which is, yes, in that case, you were correct. And that's all I'm saying is there are times where divorce is a better option.
It's not 50% of the time. You said 60? Like, it's freaking not 50%, 60%.
No, dude, people are giving up too easily. I agree.
Way too easily.
And not only that, they shouldn't have been married in the first place.
I agree.
There's a bunch of...
Okay, here's an idea I have. And this maybe would bridge the gap. And look, I don't know if any policymakers can do this. I think there should be given where we are in this modern era and all the problems that we're having, I think maybe there should be two types of marriage. Maybe there should be two types. Maybe there should be one version, marriage A, for people who believe and think it's best for we are married until one of us is no longer happy with this situation, isn't willing to work it out. And we can, the extended dating type of marriage, you could call that secular marriage. And then the religious till death do us apart marriage, where, look, there's there's three reasons. There's three valid reasons to get a divorce here. And you are in this and you're willing to commit to this. And you know all this up front. And this is what you're wanting to do. Because at the moment, the whole situation is being undermined because the incentive structure is just so completely broken at this point. Everyone recognizes it pretty much across the spectrum. Most people recognize the best situation to raise children in
is a happy home.
Yes, absolutely. It's a happy home, and it's married, committed parents. We know this. There's gazillion, regardless of what someone thinks about the institution of marriage or whatever, the statistics on this are very clear. That's the
Both
ideal.
Parents, sure.
Yeah, that's the ideal. I understand not everyone is going to
nuclear family.
100%, right? That's the best thing for everyone involved, ideally. And so if you want to encourage people to partake in that, then it has to have incentives. If you have millions of young men who are out there looking at marriage as an institution of like, what the heck is even the point of this? Because it's all risk with large risk with very little upside in its current cultural context and legal context. Yeah. Then fewer and fewer people are going to engage in that. And people need to think about, some people might be like, okay, that's good, it's outdated anyway. But I think people need to be very careful with how they draw these conclusions. Because if you look in communities where marriage rates are very low, tons and tons of children are being born out of wedlock and so on.
It's chaos.
It's chaotic, and the outcomes for those children are not good. So someone might listen to me and go, oh, Zuby, you're being idealistic. And I'm like, yes, I am being idealistic, but I'm not being unrealistic, because for most of human history and in most parts of the world, this institution functions in the way that it's supposed to. And in the USA, it used to. In the UK, it used to. It doesn't mean every single marriage all through history has ever been perfect or ever will be. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you've got a situation where like a divorce rate is like 50-50, it's a coin toss.
Well, if you knew
that is something's gone horribly, horribly wrong.
I 100% agree. Yeah. But if you knew that, like, if people were almost scared into not being married, there'd be less marriages. Like if you told a dude, this will be the last woman you ever get to have sex with, right on that day, they're like, I do. Mm-hmm. But when it's like reality, well, then why are they cheating 2 years later? Why wouldn't they just, and by the way, why wouldn't they just divorce? Now you say, why would they divorce?
I don't see it. Look, I don't think.
Well, you see the divorce as the failure.
I think a divorce is a failed marriage. Absolutely.
100%. But you see that as the failure. Mm-hmm. I see the harmed child as the failure.
But what about the harm caused to children from a divorce? You have to factor that in.
Again, if they got divorced and the children were now exposed to two unhappy homes still, mm-hmm. and two degenerate homes still, well, then the divorce wasn't the answer. Mm-hmm. Child protection services might have been the answer. I don't know. All I'm saying is divorce is less than, in other words, I don't think divorce matters when it comes to the welfare of a child.
But it does.
I don't think so.
Man, I think
only because
it does.
Only because, like, dude, listen, if I'm gonna have two kids grow up in a house that's miserable and fighting and screaming, and that's gonna cause those kids problems,
I don't think.
I would just say simply these parents made a mistake and they need to be divorced.
By the way, dude, when I say this, I'm not saying that divorce is the absolute worst outcome. If we have a totem pole of values or goodness or like what we should strive for, then I'm not saying that a divorce is better than, I'm not saying a divorce is worse than a situation where there's like an abusive thing going on and there's domestic violence and someone's molesting the children and the parents freaking hate each other and want to, like, yeah, like a divorce situation is better than that. Like, I'm not making the claim that divorce is like at the absolute worst thing that can happen in every scenario. Like, I exist in the real world. I know that's not the case. However, we as a society and everything, I think one of the big problems we're facing in the West is because certain standards and ideals are difficult to meet, people want to blow up the standard rather than trying to see how we can create a situation where more people can achieve that standard. You're seeing this even happen in things like health and fitness, for example, right? So if you're looking at the whole fat acceptance, body positivity, or whatever, people are basically saying, look, it's hard to eat right. It's hard to be in good physical shape. It's hard to sleep well, drink enough water. Like, these things are hard. It's hard to have a good, impressive physique and stay and remain in shape. So therefore, let's get rid of that standard, right? Not, hey, let's be understanding and acknowledge that not everyone's going to achieve this and make sure that we treat people decently and so on. They're just saying, hey, blow up that standard. You can be healthy at any size. Big is beautiful. Obesity is not unhealthy, whatever. And I'm very concerned that this is happening in just so many areas, from relationships to health to jobs to money to careers to so many elements. It's just like, okay, well, the ideal is difficult, so let's not even have it, because it'll make some people feel bad if they don't achieve it. And I don't think that's what we want to be teaching the next generation. That's my thought.
Well, we would agree 1,000% on that.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying, but again, you're saying the same thing I'm saying, which is You're saying, well, I mean, in these circumstances, obviously, marriage ain't that important. It's just you heard me on the podcast just say it cut and dry, meaning I jumped right to that. I didn't fill you in on all the, well, if they can't do this and they can't. It was actually
quite a nuanced conversation. It was the one you did with, it was something dad. It was a podcast around dads and fatherhood. It was from 2021, about 2 years ago.
Did it make you cringe?
It did actually.
Did you go? Yeah, I don't like him now.
No.
Unfollow.
No, that's nonsense. No, that's nonsense. But I agree with you on a lot of things, and I think you're so on point on so many things. And I was like, that's a shame. Like I think that. Yeah,
but again, dude, listen, I'm telling you, I bet you if we laid it all out, we would be saying the same thing, except for you're a little bit more. I'd even give it more than that. So we might be off on our, but we're saying the same thing because, to me, divorce, when I was married the first time, was out of the question. Like you only got married once, and if you ever get divorced, dude, that means you can't get married again, and you're done, and that was it. I agree, but dude, I'm glad I got divorced. Why? Well, because now she's happy, I'm happy. I have 3 beautiful daughters with my new wife. People make mistakes, man.
Oh, I understand.
It's not that big a deal. God forgives. Okay. He forgives, doesn't he?
He does.
Okay. Well, then God forgives. You made a mistake. And a lot of times people are young as hell. They made a mistake, man. They married the wrong person. They grew up, and yes, they should.
50% of people are marrying the wrong person.
I know, but listen, yes, they should work it out. Yes, they should take responsibility. But if for any circumstances, like it's not conducive, then I would say, then get divorced. And you would say, do not get divorced.
Here's my question.
But eventually you would say get divorced.
Here's my question. Why get married in the first place if that's your attitude?
Well, again,
I genuinely don't understand.
That's a great question.
I don't understand why you get married. That's my perspective.
Well, you heard mine on your show, which is the same.
For your wife.
Quite frankly, I believe in commitment. I believe in monogamy and loyalty, and I believe that when you make a commitment, you should keep it.
Yes,
but I don't believe you should have to get married with the state.
Okay,
why? Because why would you even get married?
Yeah, that's we totally align there. Yeah. We totally align there because I have that. That's why I'm like, look, I think there should almost be like 2 types of marriage. You could call them different names or whatever. Because I do understand the perspective, and look, I recognize, like, of course, I've got a religious background. I recognize not everybody does. So I can put my brain in a very secular framing, which is like, okay, well, yeah.
And you're not married, obviously.
Not yet. No, I will get married.
And when you do, you better never get divorced, fool.
Oh, I know.
Or everybody's going to be laughing their ass off at you.
I know.
Going, well, lucky.
I know. 100%.
But I have a feeling you won't, because I believe that you believe in your convictions.
Yeah, and look, and we come from very different backgrounds, right? Like where I'm from and people I know and the culture I'm in, divorce is very rare.
But you also aren't getting married early.
Some people
are
do.
you? Do they have arranged marriages?
Some people don't.
They do in Dubai. They still have arranged marriages in Saudi.
It's not the norm.
Isn't it?
It's not the norm.
What do they do with the arranged marriages?
In Saudi Arabia, arranged marriages still exist in some parts of the world, but it's not like the.
Where do arranged marriages exist?
Definitely in India, parts of Asia. Certain parts
arranged
of Africa.
Marriages are accepted practice in Afghanistan, Africa, Bangladesh, India, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Japan, United Kingdom, and numerous other countries.
United Kingdom's in there and Saudi's not. That's funny. By the way, I don't think arranged marriage. This is a controversial take. I don't think arranged marriage is. I used to think it was a terrible idea. I actually think it's quite a good idea now.
Dang. Well, dude, listen, I'm going to have you back. We got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
As long as it's not actually forced or coerced, I think parents make better decisions generally than their children do.
Dang. Yeah. Well, folks, there's a cliffhanger for you. If you want to hear more, go check him out on his podcast. Otherwise, get ready for part 2. When do you get back to wherever you are going? Let's do it. Let's do a part 2 Zoom version.
A part 2? Okay. Man, next stops are California, UK, Malaysia, and then back to the US, I think. I might go to Thailand, but I'll be back in the US actually.
But let's schedule a part 2.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to do it, man.
Folks, go check him out at Zuby Music, Zuby. You already know how to spell music, I hope. And until next time, keep it real. Appreciate you coming in, bro.
Nice one, Brad. Thank you.
But to your question, 25%, you're saying, right? You can make 25%. So why do whole life? Why do the infinite banking? Easy.
Because you're only saving a little interest here and there. Like, I'm not buying a car and paying interest.
But here's what you're doing. You're going to make money, right? 25%. You go make a 25% return. I tell people all the time, infinite banking is good for really three things.